It's been a while since I posted any of my stories, but I had a few requests. Well, at least one request, and that I was going to continue um, with them. Um, and and while I do them, I throw a little here and there, some facts of certain places and some stories and some people. I guess you can take it, but um, yeah, this one I'm not going to say the date, but this was back in 2019. This is one of my big. This is my first big hit on Seabass, and we had 12 people on the boat, and it was probably maybe my 10th time running the boat. Maybe I want to say less, but like I said, for the people that don't know, I only ran that boat maybe 20 times before I purchased it. So yeah, my experience was that was that green as a captain. So I had to teach myself everything because obviously the guy before me he didn't know how to fish. I mean, he didn't know how to. He was just a lazy captain. The dude didn't he would like I said he would always look at his he would look at him like be like it's that time like we're on our it's time to go in we got they're gonna get there we're gonna be in F4 like usual. He just didn't have no effort and some people they knew the truth. They know that's how it was with them, and that's why a lot of people stay with me. And they may not like that I say that about them, but you know something? These people talk so much trash behind my back, and like I would talk to this other dude that used to be my friend, and end up being one of the guys that was, one of the ringleaders that were harassing me. Then told everyone not to talk to me. Well, he would just be like, well, he's intimidating you. And I'm like, I don't know why, I mean, well, first of all, I think the problem was is that he didn't know how to run a deck. His the mouth threw him behind the wheel, and just expected him just to, before his time. I mean, obviously, yeah, I'm not gonna say that, but you ask his other son, and he'll tell you that, yeah. Well, anyhow, he didn't know how to run a deck, and that's just the truth. When I was on that, that's why I had to take over that deck. He would just panic and whatever, shit. Yeah, he's probably better now. Back then, he was just a kid. Still is a kid, but he's probably a little wiser now. And like I said, I used to feel sorry for him. You know what I mean? Because his dad used to talk to him, and he'd be, yeah. I'm not gonna even put that out there, but it was like this dude's a kid. I used to hear, and I mean, there's times I just want to beat his dad up because the shit he was, telling him. But when you just would, if you listen to conversations, you'd be like, wow. And then I had to back up because I would be like, they're both got some screws loose. Anyhow, they don't like it. Well, they talk so much shit about me, getting in my passengers, putting my business out there. And they should have never got on my business, my passengers, and put my business out there. Period. Because they act like they're lucky. I close my eyes on a lot of stuff, but don't play with me. You know what I mean? Um, these guys are just trash talkers, big mouths. You know, called Coast Guard themselves. Well, I know Channel Islands did, and I know who was because that's what Coast Guard told me. You know what I mean? Bottom line, so they were calling on me, and it was the main one there. So anyhow, this day was unfortunately, it started off pretty. It was a tragic day, but we got out to the fishing grounds. I had 12 passengers on the boat. Most of them were all new, um, and they were new. And we got to the grounds, and I didn't run the boat much. It was like the first time I did it in maybe weeks, and so I just guessed and went to the spot. I know they're gonna catch a couple croaker there, and I didn't know exactly where, so I go there, and we got some. It was uphill, uphill current, and yeah, we were at Bowen, and we're right there. The guys they're fishing the bottom because they're learning how to fish. A lot of them, these guys are learning how to fish, so we're catching. We're actually on sardines. We're right there catching. On dropper loop, we're catching calicos, we're catching sheephead. I mean, we're catching, we're just catching this stuff's, it's just biting, and I'm like, It's I told everybody like, hey, we got about 10 more minutes. We're gonna just keep because we're fishing for Seabass. That's what we're fishing, but we're just trying and giving them. I was giving them opportunity. Anyhow, we probably were there at that point, hour and a half, hour. And since we were catching and picking away a little bit, like I got to stay a little longer, but I told everybody, hey, we got like 10 more minutes, guys. 10 more minutes. At 9 o'clock, we're gonna end up leaving if nothing happens here. Well, we hooked a heavy hanger, and I'm telling you, these guys were not experienced. Great guys, very little experience. Um, so guy hooks a heavy hanger, and I mean they're shaking his head like a sea bass, and I'm like, and we lose it. Then we hook another heavy hanger, and we end up losing that. And I'm like, man, like we're gonna leave. We're gonna leave shortly, guys. I'm just thinking like, what were these fish? Anyhow, we hook another one, and that's it. Like these are croaker. We get bit. Boom, we just get full bit, and everybody but one person's on. Like we're just bent. We're bent. We're bent all on dropper loop. And we figured it out. Once we hooked that one, I asked the guy, "Where you at?" He's like, "I was like 5 turns off the bottom." Everyone give like 5 turns off the bottom, or and then I was telling some guys, just take it, and then some others out. I'm just dropping it to where I'm out of sight. I did. He was bent. Like we're just. I mean, this is chaotic now. I'm on bang a dipper, boom, 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 man. And we're doing this probably for an hour straight. I mean, the guys did their best. We didn't get all of them, obviously. We lost a lot, but I mean, it was a full on bite for nearly an hour. Nearly an hour. We're bit. These, like I said, a lot of these guys are new. And when you start hooking these fish, and this is 3 fish limits. So like we start just we're just like we're full bet. And I remember like just keep swimming, bang a dipper, about every 5 minutes in it, and these fish stayed on us. And I remember, I mean, just perfectly because there's this old man, and I'm like, hey, dude, he's not bit, and these guys are just, I mean, they're just laying it into him. I'm not lying. I had 5 rental rods on there. Like probably we had like seven rental rods, but this 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 older man. I'm like, where you at? He was on the bottom. I'm like, look, man, I'm telling you, if you want to catch a fish, you gotta listen to what I'm telling you. You listen, like, so I wind it up and I drop his line. I'm like, you gotta just put it right out of sight. So I go and I drop it for him. I hand it to him and just gets bit. Boom. He's like, oh, you know what I mean? So I mean, this is like this for an hour. I go up. I always shared it with the fleet. At that point, I was new, so I just shared it on the radio with the guys, and a couple boats came over, and unfortunately they missed the bite. But at that point, we had 31 or 32 for 12, so we were short. We were short a couple, a few for a limit. We should have 36 for the limit, but we ended up with 31 or 32. I believe it was 31, and I mean, it was to be, one of my first times in a big hit like that, as running the boat, it just, it changed everything, like it was just, everybody knows I can run a deck. I mean, I can run a deck. Even whether I'm running the boat or not, like I take over. That's what I do. That's my thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I was teaching whoever was on my crew so they could run the boat. Like it's your deck. You know what I mean? Like I want to teach you that this is your deck, but when I come down, it's my deck. But we work together. It's me and you. I mean, us working together puts more fish on the boat. You know what I mean? Because communication's key. I got 5 in the back. I got 4 in the bow. You know what I mean? Okay, I got one going back down, one going down to you. Okay, I got one going up, and so that communication right there, that teamwork, that stuff is key to a lot of people catching. But when you have a lot of inexperienced passengers, you're gonna have casualties. And as the more I started fishing these sea bass, I learned more and more. That's why I started fishing those big 7 to 10 odd hooks. You know what I mean? And my strategy was a little bit different than some of these guys. Now fishing them, we tall drop loop, all that, yeah, that remained the same. Um, but hook size and drag size, but I loosen those drags and I fish very very large hooks. And my success rate on landing fish, I mean, a lot of people could tell you like we did not lose a lot of fish, and we did it. And when we lose fish, it was like it had to be one of those days. But our hook to land ratio, I mean, it was so high. You know what I mean? And I think other boats started fishing those big hooks. I mean, bigger hooks, they drive deeper. You know what I mean? When you fish a squid, just fish heavy line. You know what I mean? Because they're not line shy. I mean, when they're biting, and we were catching those on sardines, it was all sardine bite. That was a different bite. And the guys, like I said, they did great. I mean, for the experience. And I remember there was one kid on there with his dad, and I think his uncle. And I mean, we took pictures, and then there was some friends that knew my friends from Santa Paula. There was like five of them too, all brothers and their pops, and like like it was we killed it. And then, like I said, the older gentleman, I remember like yeah, yeah, it was an epic day though, for the boat, for the passengers, like when we fish as a captain, we do it for our passengers, you know what I mean, and not only am I competitive, for myself, yeah, you always want to catch more than the next boat. It's just something, but at the same time, I want them to catch something too because a lot of these boats carry my same passengers that go on those boats. You know what I mean? So we go by, like I said, and I mentioned this before, like, one of the boats are big, be like, yeah, and they fish my boat too. You know what I mean? I'm over there taking pictures for them. Unfortunately, like, at first it was like that, but the better I got, the like you could just see how the change was. You know what I mean? I remember finding some fish up up over there by in China Bay, but up they call it by, it was by over there by the Steve spot. It's kind of up in the corner up there on the outside. It was we were in right there about 9 fathoms. It was by some structure spot, and I ended up finding these, and we ended up hooking five of these fish. So we're looking, and I hooked these fish, and I call one of the teammates over, and they're over the jumping away. So I'm like, hey, we're bad. We got five hanging. Anyhow, we get three of them. Um, and they come over, and they start laying down the sonar. At first, like everyone knows I don't have a sonar, but I'm not good at finding these fish. Well, these fish were just running for me, and they were just heading like I hit them and they run. I think that's why they got comfortable with us. I used to chase them so much that when I would get bit, like that's the last school I got in 2023. Like I was on that school. I was on that school weeks before. The one of the boats ended up getting some one day, but before that, I think it was that morning or the day before, they both seen me. I was dropping. Well, they were at Pussy Rock. I was over there dropping at a fish camp, dropping on those sea bass. I found them on the edge, but I couldn't get them to bite. But later on that afternoon, or it was the next day, one of the boats ended up getting bit, and I ended up running up towards the bay, and then because there was some croaker in there too, the bigger ones. But I ended up running back. Didn't work out for me, But for your passengers, sometimes you gotta take that risk. They're catching some fish. By the time I got there, that boat left. It was just a bad move for me. But you do whatever you can. Sometimes it's the wrong move. But anyhow, back to that trying to bait one. I hooked these fish to get them, and this, like I said, they're just running from me, and like they're hitting them on the sonar. They can cast into them. I can't see them unless I'm running right over them. I mean, and sometimes you can see them up, but this was just all like we were seeing them, and I couldn't get my lines in them. I just couldn't do it. I found the school, and they came and they end up limiting it out. Usually we stick around and help each other. And old boy just like I guess the owner was on the boat, and he's like, "Hey, let's go make some squid right now." And it was messed up because At least the passengers on the boat were my regulars, and they just left us hanging. And I kept trying to find this, I couldn't do it. And the old boy got at me later on. He's like, "Man, I'm sorry, man, but old boy's on the boat and he told me just leave." And I felt bad, and I was just like, whatever, you know. And I heard like, you hear everything, hear things, and these people were just getting jealous. You know what I mean? I mean, you put them up against me in the sonar. You know what I mean? Without a sonar, I like I said, they couldn't do what I do. And that's just a fact. But I give these guys credit. You know what I mean? I give them credit. You know what I mean? Because they catch them. But since I have to give myself credit, I will, and I am. You know what I mean? I was that good, and I am that good. You know what I mean? Um, you know what I mean? There was times like that, but I was always a team player, and a lot of times these guys were just sandbagging. They act like, oh, I know we're all. They were getting out for the skips. They all have friends in there that are in the skips. I didn't have anybody. You know what I mean? Um, they would get tipped off, so they would know, and until they caught them first, then they would tell us later. But so I mean, like I said, I made my ways and I made my rounds, and everybody forgets about who caught the limits, for the small boats. Like as far as like the bigger sport boats, locally, and three fish limits, one fish limits, first fish, whatever. I guess I had to give myself credit for that. And I wish I could put the stats up against all these boats. Because if you put the stats up and you look at the number of people to their number of trips, uh, I mean, this is, or overnight, because overnight fishing is way different than locally. This local fishing is, it's not very often where you just go anchor up and these fish are on squid beds. These fish are like these fish. It doesn't happen like that. Does it happen once in a while locally? It does. These local islands, it does. But that Santa Rosa fish, that Miguel stuff, that shit's way different. It's not like it's way different. And I fish those places and I found schools. With just by myself. I mean, and I'm not anchoring up on skid beds. I just run over to school and I just bomb down on them, or I found them eating squid. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was doing. I wish people really knew the amount of times that I did that. But anyhow, back to all that stuff. That day, my 12 passengers, did a great job. And it was like, it wasn't like tasting the worm for the first time, but it was, you know what I mean? And everybody knows I'm ruthless when it comes to sea bass because or big game. It's because some people get in that fish mode where they just get stuck and they can't hear you sometimes. Some people, you can talk to them and they'll move. Some people, you have to yell at them and then they'll move, or you have to yell at them to get them to do what they need to do. And that's the only reason I yelled. And I let them know, like, hey, I want you guys to catch fish. And this is the reason why I'm like this. But, we're rock fishing and I don't care. Like, but when it comes to that sea bass fishing, it's so hard. You know what I mean? These they don't call these fish ghosts for nothing. You know what I mean? I'm finding schools and just bombing on them. Drop your lines, drop your lines. I mean, that's how I did it. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people could do that. And I mean, let's be honest. Over here, uh, maybe five captains could do that. Maybe, and that's probably pushing it. You know what I mean? Like that's probably pushing it, really. You know what I mean? But you take that equipment from these guys and just put a fish finder. They might hate me for saying it, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? Like I was the poorest owner with the slowest boat, didn't have a sonar, and even when the other boat that got the sonar that looked like my boat, you still couldn't catch them. You know what I mean? Look at the stats on 2023. I had 10 yellows. I had over 100 halibut. I had a 30. I had actually 30 some sea bass. They have 31 on there, but I always catch crew limit. So um, I mean, and they were at 50, 60 one of these boats. The other boat, I mean, and since we weren't working each other, our our passengers took a hit. But I mean, it was what it was. That day, that 12 passengers did their job, and I was pretty grateful that most of the times that our passengers, you know, they knew what they came on the boat for, and they knew what I was going to do, and that's what they embraced it. And there was times we made it happen, a lot of times, and there was times we didn't, and there was a lot of times we didn't. But I think more times we succeeded, and thanks to my passengers for that. Um, Maybe it'll happen again one day, but maybe it won't. To deal with that headache and that heartbreak, multiple times out there. I don't know if I can go through it again, especially put my kids through that. So, but forever grateful to my passengers that stood with me, because without them, like I was getting out every day, and without them, like I would have no business. So thank you guys.